And now our meeting tonight is open for sharing testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Good evening. I wish to express my gratitude for the readings. They were very helpful. Also, I would like to express my gratitude for the watches. I think that the watch each couple of times a week are very, very beneficial, for they give us an indication of what we should be doing our work for. A future newsletter is going to mention that a joy from this such of activity is very beneficial. I wish to thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy.
I'm very grateful to be here tonight and for all I am gaining through Christian Science. Before coming to Plainfield, I used to spend a lot of time researching. I would read as many books and websites as possible, trying to learn everything I could about computers and technology. I'm not saying that didn't have value in what I do now, as it was the best I could do at the time, but things are so much different. Now, with all I've been taught these past years about looking to God alone for answers, I've found that there's no need to spend any time each week researching. When an obstacle comes along, I now see it as an opportunity to ask God's guidance on what needs to happen. As an example, on Monday, I did some updates on my computer. Everything seemed to be working as needed until yesterday morning when I went to make the video for Sunday's song. The program I've been using for over a year suddenly started throwing exceptions to everything I asked of it. I spent about 1 minute trying to fix it and then said, "All right, Father, what should I do?" I instantly got the feeling to look online for alternatives, and within about 2 more minutes, I had a program downloaded that had a similar feel and usability. And with only a slightest bit of learning curve, I was able to finish the video and get it uploaded to YouTube. This is what has me so grateful tonight. Everything I've been learning here is of such practical value in all aspects of my life. It is so wonderful to have this sure sense that God will, without a doubt, supply everything I need for my life and work. I'm so grateful for this church, for this science, and for regular practitioner support. Thank you. And now I have a testimony from Diana.
Hello, this is Diana from Berlin and Vienna. I'm in Berlin now, and I would like to express my gratitude first for the Blue Book. I have been reading the Blue Book, and I'm learning so much from it. One thing that I'm learning from the Blue Book and from being part of this church is how to do the work. On page 59 in the Blue Book, it says, "One day, Mrs. Eddy said to a student, 'Are you working?' He began to tell of his hours of study and work. She said, 'When you see old age, do you declare that life is eternal activity, beauty, and joy? When you see the leaves falling and hear the wind blow, do you declare that there is no change, decay, or cold? When you see deformity and disease, do you declare that man is made in the image and likeness of God?' The student answered, 'Mrs. Eddy, I am not working.'" I think it was also in this Blue Book that we learn that if you are going to solve a math problem, you don't just look at the blackboard hoping that the problem will work itself out, but you work out the problem. Working out the problem is what we need to learn to do, and I am so grateful that I am learning from all of you in this church and from all of the resources that you make available to me how to work out my problems. And I am so grateful to be part of this group of new early workers, as Mary quoted from someone's letter in the testimony meeting 2 weeks ago. I am also extremely grateful for last week's beautiful readings in the testimony meeting. They were so helpful to me, and I listened to them many times. I'm also extremely grateful for Candy's testimony, which really helped me a lot all week in regard to the issues in my marriage. It taught me that I need to hold fast to the truth that there is one divine mind which is governing me, my husband, and even others who are interfering in our marriage. I've been working with this all week, and it's really helping me to stay aligned with God, where I can feel peaceful rather than get dragged into the muck, the mist, the animal magnetism. Thank you all for all that you're doing. Thank you for all of your work.
Thank you. Nancy from New Jersey, go ahead.
Yes, good evening. Just wanted to express my gratitude for the beautiful service this evening, the very beautiful readings and music, and the testimonies so far. Tonight I just wanted to say how grateful I am for the daily calendar statements, which are always so inspiring and thought-provoking. Yesterday's statement said, "Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant." That really caught my attention, and I just loved that so much. It was a great reminder to me that as I go about my day, to look for opportunities to plant the seeds of love, of patience and gratitude, of truth and kindness, that it was such a simple thing to do, and I was just so very grateful for this reminder. We are given so much in this church to help us to grow and to practice Christian Science, and I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful for the strong and loving support of my practitioner. I'm so grateful to God for his ever-present help, for Christ Jesus, Mrs. Eddy, and for this beautiful church. I don't know what I would do without Plainfield. I am so very grateful to be here tonight, and I thank you.
Thank you. Chardell.
Good evening. Tonight I would like to share my gratitude for our classes here at the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, and for practitioner support that is leading me out of old theology and teaching to a new light, an understanding of God and what it means to really love Him. At the round table on Easter Sunday, we were asked, "Where is your focus?" Christ prayed for us, all of us, although he was about to face a most horrific human situation, knowing that God was with him and protecting him through the whole ordeal to prove to the world and mankind that love survives all, gives all, is all. Now that is focus or true atonement. So, I have been asking myself and checking myself, am I staying in harmony with God, no matter what? If I don't like the answer, I work harder. Sober, diligent, patient, meek, and loving. I couldn't do this without my practitioner's strong support. Thank you for the readings, and thank you for the beautiful music.
Thank you. Craig.
Thank you for the beautiful music. So inspiring, and it was felt like energy was just being shared among all of us. The great enthusiasm that is shown in it. It is contagious. Also, the readings were really enlightening, and patience. I realized, as was said, we say patience. In patience, you have your soul. And everybody's path is different to Christian Science and to peace. But there is a beauty of patience that whatever you're having to go through, if you have patience and go through it, you will see the light again of what your purpose in life is and what you should be doing.
and I'm sure it'll continue in eternally. Well, my path to this church, I guess it was one of patience. I felt like I was dwelling in the valley of the shadow of death for most of my years, and the only good that I could see good in children, and occasionally a person here and there, but that was about it. It seemed to be a battle. But I was introduced to Christian Science, and Mrs. Eddy is so sweet and pure and clean in her writings that I could see how the book applied to children, and she mentions it over and over again. And I had an opportunity to help a little child, because I couldn't see the good in everybody else, but I did help that child. And it said, this is something to you. And from then I started believing more. And I got led to this church. And you can feel the Spirit of God as soon as you enter this church. The spirit of honesty and sincerity and purity and cleanliness. It just feels true. And unlike anything else I've faced since or before. So I've experienced that because of this church, and we work as a unit for God and for all mankind, if we're working, and I may be suffering through whatever issues I'm going through, when I come here, the united activity frees, and I become the person that God made, at peace and happy and strong, and it becomes clear that that I can do good things. And I thank God for providing that and enlightening, I'm sure, all of us to the goodness of Him and the goodness of man as the truth and the thing that we can stand with. But I really know that it's only because there's a sincere group that I can come to, that when I do go under, for whatever reason, that I can be freed again through the help of a practitioner or just those here as a group. And it's just it's the most wonderful thing. But it would never happen unless I could keep coming back to the whole church. I by myself have fallen on my face many times. I'm not the smartest one out there. That was something I realized. Definitely the errors can easily trick or deceive me into doing something very stupid. But this church brings light to people in the right direction. And then together we will be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda.
Thank you very much for the readings and the music tonight. I want to express my great gratitude for the correct teaching that we find here at the Plainfield Independent Church. I'm very grateful for the opportunity I had to do the last week or so, a little gardening at my house. And I'm grateful for this because I had the renewed strength to do this. It's been a couple years since I've been able to actually really work in the garden. And this healing has come from regular practitioner support that I have been receiving here. I had to work on the garden of my thought, if you will. I had many spiritually neglected areas in my life that needed tending and had wasted much time and energy on worldly things rather than on a relationship with God. It has been taking much patience, diligence, hard work, and using the practical teachings here to change habits and thoughts. I am learning how to put God first. I'm gaining moral courage and letting go of habits of a false sense of responsibility, learning what true forgiveness is, courage, and the right sense of giving. It helps to have the right tools in these clear teachings of Christian Science. Attending to the things of God has brought many blessings and renewal. It is very fulfilling to do this and satisfies the heart like nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is Bruce, and my testimony tonight is my gratitude to God Himself for His great love. And it really sparked something when I read the golden text in our lesson this week, which says, "To the Lord our God belong mercies and forgiveness, though we have rebelled against Him." And, I don't like to think that maybe I've rebelled against God, but I'm sure that I have many times. Yet through it all, He still loved me. And the very fact that He brought me here to this church to learn about the reality of all things brought to light, Christian Science, here in the Plainfield Church, is like one of many second chances I needed, but clearly the most significant second chance on life through God's great love. And to me, this just shows something very significant, that, first of all, God loves everyone, and it's not His nature, the nature of love, to even throw up your arms in disgust and walk away. Divine love does not do that. And I'm living proof, because that could very easily have happened to me many times. But here I am, through the grace of God and His unfailing mercy and love. So for all of you out there that are struggling with things, God has never given up on you and never will. And I would encourage you to read what we have on our website, read our lessons. Just don't try to analyze it, just take it in and let it sit on the heart. You'll find God's love. God's love is permanent. It doesn't come and go. It's always there. So that's my testimony tonight. Thank you, dear Father, for your endless mercy. Carol.
I was speaking with a practitioner the other day, and I said, I have to write that down right now so I don't forget. And the practitioner said, mind never forgets. And boy, was that a wake-up call. Oh, my goodness. I remember reading that in Martha Wilcox's book on her addresses, and she had was saying goodnight to Mrs. Eddy. And she said to Mrs. Eddy, didn't forget anything today, did I? And Mrs. Eddy told her, no, she hadn't forgotten anything. And then Mrs. Eddy called her back a little bit later, and she asked her about it. And Mrs. Wilcox said, no, mind never forgets, Mother. And Mrs. Eddy said, that's right. She said, if you hadn't gotten that, then you'd have been in big trouble, or words to that effect. And I thought, that's what I need. I need to remember that it's God that has all the information. God knows everything, and all I have to do is ask. And there is no way to forget, because God's not going to forget. And I remember also several years ago, Mrs. Evans told us that God is kind of like a big computer, and we are connected to that computer, and anything we need to know, it's right there. And I that was something that I could visualize, and it was very helpful to me at the time. And but just to know that God knows everything, He's got all the answers, and all we have to do is ask. And I tell you, lately I have been remembering things that surprise me. I'm really, really grateful for that lesson, and very grateful to be here. And thank God for this church, and for Mrs. Eddy, and for practitioner help. Thank you.
Thank you. Day from Georgia. Go ahead.
Thank you for tonight's readings on patience. A thought came to me recently while praying, and the instruction that came with it was for me to go slow. I quickly decided to obey by making my mind up to slow down in all that I'm doing daily. I'm thankful that I noticed an immediate change in the unfoldment of my daily activity. It seems that I was at once relieved of the stress and unnecessary pressure that I was constantly putting on myself. And this has in turn made me more productive. I'm realizing that allowing God to set my pace, order my steps, and work through me is to be rightly active. This has been such a swift and significant healing, which I'm most grateful for. Thank you so much again for tonight's reading and for all the testimonies given so far. I'm very grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Mike from New York, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those beautiful and timely readings. Last Monday, I was at my farm and raked leaves I didn't get to last fall for 6 straight hours. It gave me plenty of time to be with God, but still left me sore and exhausted in the evening. I applied Emmanuel, God with us, being a law unto himself, and feeling God through peace, joy, and harmony every time I awoke during the night. By morning, I was free of the worn-out feeling and no sense of being sore. Thought came to me, in the future I need to do the greater works, as have been talked about here during some of the Plainfield classes. Know that I don't need to experience these things to begin with, and that's the solution. I helped a fellow renting the farm fix fence for half the day, along with numerous other projects after that. When I drove home that evening, I had plenty of time to pray, praise, and be grateful to God. To listen to God, it struck me that in spite of working with and even rolling up some barbed wire without gloves, I had not received one scratch, bruise, or cut the whole day. This is the first time in over 50 years of fixing fence that I didn't receive a seemingly unavoidable scratch or cut. Truly, this proves everything good is possible through God. I'm so extremely grateful for the teachings at this church, which allows me to better apply Christian Science, and I am so grateful to God, Christ Jesus, and Mary Baker Eddy for this way of life. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Sharon.
Thank you for the excellent readings tonight. Recently, I found this statement, and it's been very helpful. The problem can be solved or would not be given you, for God never asks impossibilities. Mary I. Meshbrook. This has really been so helpful because everything is all things are possible with God, and this statement just tells us the problem wouldn't be ours if it was impossible to be solved. I'm just so grateful for what I'm learning in this church, for our roundtables, our Bible studies, practitioner help, and all the readings that are given every Wednesday and Sundays. This is just a wonderful place to be, and I'm very grateful for everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here tonight, and thank you all for the beautiful testimonies so far. I'm so grateful to learn what patience really means and how to work or practice while waiting for unfoldment of a desire. So many years ago, I didn't know this, and all I knew was patience is a virtue, but I didn't practice patience. And I have learned through science that first of all, if I have any desire to trust it to God, let it to God, which is give it to his care. And in the time of waiting, to do something, not just wait and rather focus on the fear and the doubt that can continue whilst you're waiting. I'm so grateful to have learned through Mrs. Eddy's works and all the articles I've read that in that time I am to learn more about God, to learn more about trusting him from my own experiences, what he has done in my life, and also from the Bible, all the things that we read about, to help me to have more faith in God, to lose the doubting and the insecurity that can really overcome one when things don't seem to be moving anywhere. We learn that God is working all the time. And when I'm waiting for something to unfold, it is more beneficial to focus on his power, to really work to know that there is only one power, and that power never stops working, and to expect that there will be an answer. I used to have so many difficulties with making decisions, although we've been told to trust God with all our problems. Still, I was rather holding on to the problem instead of letting God, and in that time of waiting, just looking more for the understanding of who God is, the all-knowing, all-seeing, all-acting, everywhere, every time, with us all the time. I'm just so grateful for what Mrs. Eddy has explained, what patience is, the way she uses planting to explain it, how plants grow, what we should be doing, clearing our thoughts during that time of all the little foxes, the selfishness, resentment, impatience, and all those things. This is what I've learned to use that time for. And I'm so grateful that God never fails. When we wait long enough correctly, he sure has the answer, always, on time, not a minute late. So grateful to be here tonight. So grateful for Christ Jesus, what he taught, Mrs. Eddy, what she has explained to us. And I'm so grateful to be a part of a church where this truth is being practiced and others are learning from it. I'm happy to be here tonight.
Thank you. Mary.
Hello, everyone. Tonight I have two testimonies to read from Florida. One of the blessings I received since becoming a member of the Plainfield Church was a lesson I learned many years ago. It was the importance of trusting God's plan for me rather than willfully outlining one. Several years ago, I was stuck in a dead-end job with a company I thought had no advancement opportunities for me. I had asked a practitioner from this church for help in finding employment elsewhere. Things weren't working out as I hoped, and I was getting discouraged. One day, while I was taking a walk during my lunch hour, I prayed to God, almost begging, and saying, "Dear Father, please help me find another job. I'll do anything." Immediately, I heard a voice clearly say, "Will you stay?" That stopped me dead in my tracks. I thought deeply about that question and then decided and answered to myself, yes. I changed my attitude towards my present job and began to sincerely love every aspect of it, including the people I worked with. Within a few weeks, I was promoted to a management position with new job duties that I thoroughly enjoyed, and with a generous raise, too. I'll never forget this lesson. It was one that taught me not to outline, but to listen to and obey God. For he always has a better plan for us than we can ever imagine. I'm so grateful to the practitioner at the Plainfield Church whose prayers helped me to bring this about, and for all the blessings I've received in Christian Science. And then the next is a testimony about Mrs. Evans. And for those of you who don't know, she'd been a practitioner in our church who later gave us classes and many other things. And she was the one that was excommunicated by the BOD, and then eventually our church was as well. And she was also the one who led us through the law case to great victory and to great independence for us all. So this also is from Florida. I first met Doris Evans when I was a kid. My parents had moved to Plainfield and joined the Plainfield Church. I recall going over to the Evans house, playing with her son and swimming in her pool. She would join in the water and play with us. I just enjoyed being around her and the amount of love she expressed. I recall our families doing things together, such as movies, dinners, etc. I was really not happy with the practitioner my parents were using. And one day they informed me that Mrs. Evans had just become a practitioner. I immediately said that I wanted to go to her. As it turned out, I was her first patient. I had many healings throughout my middle and high school years. I recall one time in high school I came home sick. I called her. Her cleaning lady answered the phone and said she was not at home, and I did not say who I was. I just said, "Okay, thank you." 30 minutes later, Mrs. Evans called me and said, "You called?" I was stunned and asked her how she knew. Those were the days before caller ID. She said she prayed and God told her who had called. Anyway, I told her that I was really feeling ill, flu symptoms, etc. Within a half an hour, I was healed and went back to school. The school nurse couldn't believe it. My father was a math teacher at Plainfield High School, where I attended as well. My senior year, I actually had him as a teacher for a month. Then he became very ill and was bedridden. I really didn't know what was wrong, just that it was bad, and he couldn't walk without getting totally out of breath. I remember that he lost a lot of weight, and his legs were swollen up like balloons. The practitioner he was working with was no help. He also tried the one we had used when we lived in Pennsylvania. She was no help either. I think he then tried his class teacher, who suggested that he go up to a CS nursing home in Boston. He was there for a couple of weeks, and that was no help either. I think it made him worse. I suggested that he try Mrs. Evans. He did. The first thing she did was tell him he needed to get out of there and come home, or she would not work for him. He did, and she took up the case. I remember that she would visit him almost every day. Many times she and her husband brought us dinner as well. A lot of healing love was expressed. I have tears in my eyes as I am writing this. Gradually, he started getting better and was able to get out of bed. The first time he was able to walk down the stairs was a monumental event. Before the end of the school year, he was back to work teaching. The school doctor was amazed and attested to the fact that my father had been in the final stages of cancer, leukemia to be exact. That was the first I knew what the problem was. At any rate, the healing was complete, and he was fine. My best friend's family, who were not Christian Scientists, heard about all of this, and they started attending the Plainfield Church as well. After graduating from high school, I went into the Navy and was gone for 9 years. I drifted away from science until I hit rock bottom. I called Mrs. Evans, and she greeted me joyfully and said she would help me. She got my parents involved, and I came home. I remember that the first time I went to see her after I came home, she told me that all the time I was away, she prayed for me every day. I was shocked. She said, "Well, you were my first patient." Anyway, after that, my parents had many healings through her work. My life was turned around through her work as well. We all, of course, stood with Mrs. Evans when the Boston organization tried to take over our church. It was probably the best thing that could have happened to the Plainfield Church and helped to make it what it is today. There were many other times and wonderful healings that transpired from the work of this dear lady, and we will always be grateful for all that she did and for the fact that she did give us this independent Plainfield Church that we have today. Thank God for it, and for her husband. And I thank you, too, for those beautiful, comforting readings tonight. It's so important that we express this patience, have this patience. In the lesson this week in Science and Health, Mrs. Eddy says, and this does go along with the idea of patience, work out your own salvation is the demand of life and love, for to this end God worketh with you. Occupy till I come, wait for your reward, and be not weary in well-doing. If your endeavors are beset by fearful odds, and you receive no present reward, go not back to error, nor become a sluggard in the race. When the smoke of battle clears away, you will discern the good you have done, and receive according to your deserving. Love is not hasty to deliver us from temptation, for love means that we shall be tried and purified. I can remember going through a long period of time when I felt I was not making any progress. I certainly was not receiving any reward. And that those few statements gave me such comfort and hope and courage to keep on going, no matter what. I wasn't doing it for a reward. I was doing it because I loved God. And I knew if I kept at it, the reward would come. That's the promise. But it's a matter of doing it because your heart is right with God. And that working out your own salvation, Mrs. Eddy's definition of salvation in the glossary in Science and Health is life, truth, and love understood and demonstrated as supreme over all, sin, sickness, and death destroyed. So isn't that what we're all working for, whatever point we are in life, to have this understanding of life, truth, and love being supreme, to be overcoming these beliefs of sin, sickness, and death. And sometimes it might seem quite daunting, quite a daunting task, but the key to this is where Mrs. Eddy said, "For to this end God worketh with you." Never forget that. God is working with you to help reveal himself to you, to help you get this understanding, and to help you, sometimes inch by inch, overcome these false beliefs that seem to have bound you. So God is working in you and through you for his good purpose. So comforting. I'm so grateful for our textbook, for Mrs. Eddy and all that she's given us. I'm grateful for this wonderful service tonight, the beautiful music and hymns, testimonies, and to be with you all. Thank you.
Thank you.